Hello and welcome to Technique Time with Thompson. As you know, everybody's home right now because of the pandemic that's happening, but we're going to still try to see what we can do to get better at music and have a little bit of fun while we're home. So I'll be doing a series of videos, and this is the first one. So I just want to talk to you guys briefly about the different ways that you can move your hands when you're trying to play the instrument. Alright, so first off, you've got 3 different ways that you can move the stick or your hands towards the instrument that you're playing. You can bend at the elbow. This is called using your arm. You can bend at the wrist, which is just called using your wrist, and you can also bend at what we call the front fulcrum, which is the point on the stick between the thumb and pointer finger. There's a pivot point right there, which we call the fulcrum, and it's the front fulcrum. So in order to move the stick at that point, you use your fingers. So we call these 3 different motions: arm, wrist, and finger. And everything that you do in percussion is going to be a combination of those 3 types of motions. So one more thing I want to talk about is that your primary lever is going to be your wrist. Now, there's 3 main ways you can move your wrist. You can move along the primary axis, which is, let me see if I can find a good way to show you. If you feel those 2 wrist bones on either side of your wrist, and pretend that those are a hinge, you can pivot that way. So if you're holding your hands totally flat, which we call a German grip, your wrist would just move straight up and down. So that's your primary lever. And then your secondary lever is if you take those 2 bones again and you turn them where they're one on top of each other, instead of using them like a hinge, you move from one way to the other. So that would be this kind of side-to-side motion. And if you turn your hands straight up where your thumb's on top, it's called a French grip. And so that's your secondary lever. Your tertiary lever, or your third lever, is actually rotating your wrist. So every stroke that we do is a combination of our primary lever, which is like a German style grip, your secondary lever, which is a French style grip, and your tertiary lever, which is a rotational grip, such as what you might find in the left hand of a traditional snare drum technique or marching bass drum. Now, when you play 4-mallet marimba, you use combinations of all those different motions in order to move the mallets around in your hands while you're playing. I hope that was helpful and informative, and thank you for joining me with the first episode of Technique with Thompson.